All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 352 of the Health Detective Podcast. And we are actually running it back with someone for a different conversation. If you guys were a part of our summer open house events or you got to see them live streamed on YouTube, because we did end up keeping the replays on there for certain guests that there was high demand for. Shay was one of them. You guys can go check that out. So she talked all about her business side over there. Today, we're going to be diving into Shay's actual work and her health story and the things that even allow her to be a successful FDN and health practitioner. Before we get into that, I want to shout out something that I've been shouting out almost every podcast now, but it's because we want to see you guys there. It is the first time in probably 5 years, because I think 2019 was the last one, where we have an opportunity for a real quote unquote FDN conference. So FDN used to host in-person conferences. This is a little different. It's the next best thing. Jeremy Maleka and Jen Maleka of Biocanic, and then Jen Maleka is an FDN practitioner. She's the one that got me into this 7 years ago. She's very successful in this. They are hosting a conference called HICS in San Diego from October 17th to the 19th this year, 2024. And we would love to see you guys there. They are expecting about 100 FDN practitioners to be in attendance, but this conference is not limited to FDNs by any means. So they're expecting another 200 people that are just in the health and wellness profession without being FDN. So it's an awesome opportunity to network with people outside of our immediate community, but also an amazing opportunity to network with people within it, because I feel like I'm spoiled sometimes. I have the privilege of getting to go to these conferences, or I've seen Reed in person a million times, and I forget there's so many people out there in our community that have never met another FDN practitioner or trainee in person. So if you guys want to join us for this, we do have $200 off until the end of the month. It's the best discount that you can get, of course, since it is through FDN. You go to HIX, HIX-live.com, and the code is all caps HDP200 at checkout. That's $200 off either ticket. If the VIP ticket is still available, I recommend getting that. One, because you get a free CGM in that, and I think that would probably cost you like $150 anyway. And then on top of it, I don't think they list this well. I think it says like private VIP dinner. They should hype it up more, because it's actually a dinner on a boat. Is a sunset cruise in San Diego's Mission Bay with 100 people. That's all they have for the VIP tickets. So I'm hoping all 100 VIPs, or at least the bulk, are FDNs. We have 15 members from staff coming, founder of FDN, myself, whatever that might be worth too. Hopefully that doesn't repel you. I'm hoping it makes you want to go. Course supervisor Elizabeth Gaines. It's going to be freaking awesome, man. So I hope to see you guys there. That's HIX-live.com, code HDP200 at checkout, and that gets you $200 off either ticket. All right, now for today's guest, we will get right into this. I'll read her bio and we'll start talking. Shay Pascale is an FDNP blogger and fitness enthusiast who intimately understands the challenges of restrictive diets and perpetual restarts. Having been trapped in the cycle of trial and error herself with various diets, low calories, and intense workout regimens, she empathizes with 35 through 55-year-old career women struggling to see results of their workouts and weight loss efforts. Having struggled with gut and hormone imbalances most of her life, with doctors saying blood work looks normal, as if we've never heard that, right? Or simply prescribing birth control or antibiotics, nothing resolved her issues. By discovering how to eat for her metabolic needs, running functional labs, and addressing her root causes, she resolved chronic gut and hormone issues and transformed her health and fitness in a sustainable way. Now, Shay guides her clients towards the path of food freedom and lean body composition, transforming their health from the root to build strength, vitality, and resilience for years to come. Shay, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for coming on a live event with us again.
Yay! So glad to be here again, Evan.
All right. And if you guys have any questions as we go along here, I can already see quite a few of you tuned in. Please feel free. I have questions for Shay, of course, that I'll present first, but then we're happy to get to you guys in the audience as we get about halfway through the podcast. So Shay, how the podcast is different than Summer Open House is, we might mention some business stuff, but I'm much more interested in your health journey and what got you here. No one gets into this work by accident. So we already alluded to some of this stuff in the bio, but I would like to know, when did your health symptoms start? And what did they look like specifically when they began?
Thank you again for having me. Let me tell you my story about my journey. Long time ago, let's say like when I was born, basically, they started because my parents told me that I had like gut issues, right? Since birth, basically. So I grew up just dealing with random gut issues that literally some of my family members were like, "Is this real? Are you really dealing with this?" And at that point, I was so young that you never know if it's just like in your head kind of thing. But I finally got a diagnosis as a teenager from the doctor. You have IBS, right? You have IBS, and here's a pamphlet. Off you go, because there's nothing they could do at that time, and that was 20 plus years ago. So I went through life just realizing like, okay, well, this is just something that I have to deal with. This is something that I have to kind of manage myself. And I had no idea how to do that. I went off to college. I drank the beer. Had horrible digestion. And then like it's the cafeteria food and everything just got worse. And so by the time I got to my 20s, I started having a lot of like PMS related issues, recurring infections that like made no sense. I ended up being chronically constipated. And now this is like, I'm going to get specific with you guys. Okay. Like a little TMI here, but, I ended up being like horrible digestion, couldn't go for like 2 weeks at a time. Sometimes like it was really bad. And then I'd have these random bouts of diarrhea. And then I had horrible acne, which only got worse as I got older. And you're always told, you should grow out of this. So that didn't happen. It only got worse. And then, here I am on like my fitness journey. I'm trying to like lose some body fat, build some muscle, get leaner. Cause like once I hit my like 25 or so, I was starting to gain some weight. Like I started an office job. I was sitting most of the day. So it's just very different. And so I started gaining a little bit of weight and I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to shed some of these extra pounds. And so I started the dieting roller coaster. So on top of all of the like gut issues I was dealing with in I'm sure a lot of like estrogen dominance types of things, I was like crash dieting. I was eating super low calorie, low carb. I ended up in the doctor's office once because I had zero energy. Like I had to like nap before I got into my car to go home from work for the day.
Wow.
So it was like, it got to be such a severe point that I was like, I need to get some help here. And I would search high and low on the internet of like, how do you eat to lose weight? Bodybuilding methods, blah, blah, blah. Like every Monday sitting at my desk, like when I should be working, I was like, okay, how do I lose the 3 pounds I gained over the weekend? Because it was like this roller coaster of like, okay, let me cut my calories down or cut my carbs or whatever. And I was eating like cauliflower and like mustard as a snack to try to save my calories. It was like ridiculous when I look back. And I'd be so strict eating like 1,200. Then I tried 1,500 calories. Then I tried 1,800. I tried all these different calorie like levels. Never really understood macronutrients at the time, but I was doing like the dumbbells. I was running a lot. So all of this stuff kind of like compounded like with the gut issues and probably hormone stuff that I was dealing with at the time, just had no idea. I was on birth control for 10 years. Like that did a number. And I got into my 30s thinking like, okay, I don't know, like something's got to change. So I ended up hiring like a coach. I started to realize that, I was just focusing on like, here, let me get my macros. Let me work on my body composition. Let me actually look like I work out. Cause I was working out a lot. But I just didn't feel like I looked that way. Right. I was doing all of this stuff to get leaner, but, it just didn't seem to be like nothing was changing. So unless I like crash dieted again, which set me back into that like yo-yo pattern of like hamster wheel trial and error, situation. So I was like, I got to figure out how to do this. So I hired a coach. I ended up doing what's called a reverse diet, which absolutely changed my life. It was a game changer in terms of improving my metabolic, like overall metabolism, being able to burn more calories at rest. I had more energy. I felt better. Never really resolved the gut issues, the PMS hormone issues. It never addressed my skin issues. I had headaches. I had migraines on an almost weekly basis. And so this person was like, you're running into a lot of like gut and like hormone type issues that seem to be kind of maybe like, these are recurring. These are something maybe you want to look into. I'm like, yeah, doesn't everybody deal with that? Like that's just kind of, because like, remember my doctor was like, this is just this is your life. So anyways, I learned what a GI map was at that point in time. And I was like, this is interesting. And then I ended up finding another practitioner that actually would run that for me. And I started working with her and going through a parasite cleanse. And I was like, this is what I need to do. I found a different type of practitioner, but wonderful wealth of knowledge person, highly respected. And I went through a parasite cleanse and my skin blew up, like 10 times worse than ever. And this was a trigger for me to like, okay, something's wrong here. She knows a lot, but this is making everything worse for me. My symptoms got worse. I had horrible Herxheimer reactions with this. I had a migraine for 3 weeks going through this cleanse. And so it's just a little bit too much for me, clearly. So that's when I found FDN. That's when I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. And I feel like if I can figure it out, then I can help so many more. I was already a nutrition coach at this point. I was working for myself full time. And I had a roster of clients, but I was really focused on like the macros and the fitness side of nutrition. And I was like, if I can help myself, I'm sure I can help other people with this. It would be kind of a perfect fit. And so I went through FDN. It took me a year because I was working full time and had a huge list of clients. And I tried a lot of different methods, and some of them worked and some of them didn't. I had multiple coaches through this time. I even hired an FDN for my skin health, all of this stuff. And fast forward, like over the past 2 years, I've done a lot of kind of weird and crazy things to improve my internal organ systems. And now I do not have the symptoms of IBS. I cannot say that I have IBS anymore because I have none of those symptoms. My skin has done a 180. And unless I go to town on some like dairy, basically, I'm pretty much good. And I don't really have much of like breakouts. So I've completely changed my skin. One thing I didn't mention is throughout this past couple years, I would try to like go into a calorie deficit to help shed some weight, shed some excess body fat. It's not like I'm overweight. It's just that it's a phasic approach to macros, and we can talk about that. But I was trying to do it, and it wasn't working. I couldn't do it. It's like my body revolted. And so after going through and healing the gut and hormones and all these things, now this summer, like I'm doing it again, and it's actually working. I'm actually shedding some weight finally. So I really attribute it to the deeper gut and hormone like work I did, and like addressing these internal organ system issues and focusing on that kind of internal healing to allow the fitness side of things to actually work. And so that brings us to today.
That's awesome. All right. Very cool. I think your story is incredibly relatable to a lot of people, not just in the weight loss sense, that's certainly relatable, but I think you're a group of people that grow up with like these little chronic symptoms that don't get a diagnosis. It's some of the most underrepresented people. I dealt with that myself for many years. That's how I know it. And it's kind of like, yeah, you're not sick enough that you can't go to school or you can't participate in life to some degree, but we're suffering every single day with this stuff, right? So all of a sudden, I think after years and years and years of these warning signs going off, that's when some really bad things can happen. So just to be clear, because I'm actually glad, did you ever get any like severe diagnoses or autoimmune conditions or anything like that?
Nothing to that level. I've had numerous I've had a number of things I've been diagnosed with,
Okay.
but I had probably a list of 30, 35 plus like symptoms as well that, the doctors was just kind of like, we ran your blood. It's all in range.
Yep.
So
Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing, right, guys? And this is never, just gosh forbid if it's your first time tuning in, I'm more careful now since we're on YouTube and Facebook, especially YouTube. I know people are using that as a search engine. This might be the first time they've heard us, because I know Shay well enough to know she agrees with this. This isn't against Western medicine, but that is what happens. I've experienced this myself, where I'm walking around with a million different symptoms. I even had diagnosed conditions, and because the blood work was in range enough, there's only so much that they can do with the philosophy that they've been taught. So we're operating under this philosophy that no symptom is normal. Literally no symptom is normal. It's not something that you should have to deal with. It's a warning sign coming on in the body and saying, hey, there's something else going on here. And I love how you saw, because you're already doing the nutrition coaching, you saw this connection here and how helpful this could be for other people. So I'd love to talk about this because I think this could help the listener as well. How did the FDN approach with the labs and the teachings in the course kind of help evolve what you were already doing as a nutrition coach? And then what were the unique results you were able to get for people once you started that?
Yeah. So I actually was really excited about FDN because there was just like this certain population of people that I was working with that I wasn't getting results that I thought we should be getting, right? So I had all of this knowledge on macros and fitness and all this stuff. And it's like, why aren't these people, like, why aren't they losing weight? Why is this causing? And so I have implemented a lot of these things with some of my clients, and, you know, we go as weird as they want to go with some of these tools, right? And I have seen, I'll just give you an example of one of my clients who, you know, had her gallbladder taken out many, many years ago, was always bringing her own food to events, was working out more than anyone she knew. I believe she's in her 50s. And she was like, I literally just have kind of resigned to the fact that I'm like the big girl. That's kind of like her words, right? I'm the big girl. I can't lose this weight. It's I've worked with trainers. I've gone to these. I've done all of the. I've worked with coaches, and so when we started working together, I said, let's work with the macros first. Let's get you on the right metabolic eating plan for you, first of all. We started doing that, and it took a while, but she started shedding some inches and the weight started kind of coming off. And now, since, you know, kind of fast forward, we've worked on much deeper gut healing protocols. We've done all kinds of different methods to help with like liver stagnation and congestion, which is pretty much indicative. If you've had your gallbladder removed, there was something going on with your liver gallbladder function. So we really got to work on that. She's like, I can finally like sleep 7+ hours, whereas she was having like very broken, maybe 4 or 5 hours a night, just dealing with it and just making it through the day, right? And that's so tough for energy. That's hard for you to recover from your workouts. It's hard for you to like feel like a sense of like vitality, really. And so she's plugging away. She's trying to do all this stuff, but she couldn't sleep. So now she's sleeping. She's like, my digestion has never been better, whereas everything in the past used to always bother her stomach. And I can relate to that one, right? Everything always bothered her stomach no matter what she ate. Now she's like, I can eat and I feel like I don't have these IBS issues, these kind of like annoying, pesky gut issues, right? So she's improved her gut health. She's improved her sleep. She's improved her energy. She's shed, I think, 30+ pounds at this point, whereas before nothing would do it. And we're not done, right? She's like re-signed with me for another year, and she's like, I'm excited because I'm going to take this to a whole new level. She goes, I had to buy an entire new wardrobe because all of my clothes are too big now. And she told me one of her friends, she's like, you are looking so small. And she goes, that hit me because I have always been the big girl. I've always been thought of as this. And she was just like, that was like when I knew this is absolutely working. People are noticing, and I can't believe how wonderful this has been. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you're already resonating with some people, that's for sure. Betsy said in the comments, yes, I can totally relate. So grateful to find FDN and cover my real gut issues. And I'm sorry, Betsy, I don't think we've crossed paths before because I asked if she was a trainee or graduate, and she is in fact a graduate. So thanks for tuning in with us. In terms of the unique things that the average person might not understand, I'm thinking about this from the perspective of you when you were working, and you said you're spending your Mondays instead of working sometimes, searching this stuff out. I'm like, I know someone did that because of this title today. And what's so special to me about these podcasts and the FDN philosophy is because I've never dealt with the weight loss thing. Ironically, like of all things, that was always the opposite for me. It's very hard for me to gain weight. It's become easier, thankfully, since I've gotten healthy, but it was the exact opposite. So I understand, though, from an outsider's perspective, I mean, these people are looking up so much stuff. You've heard the same things over and over again. And I think what's special for us is we really are able to give a unique perspective. So from what you've learned in the FDN course, or just after your years of doing this now, what are some of the most unknown things that could be preventing people from losing weight that you're finding are actually very common things with your clients?
Biggest things would be the macronutrient imbalance in their diet. Okay, so when I think about, so maybe a little bit different than the FDN method, but
Sure.
we have to get the right balance of protein, carbs, and fat. And if we're not eating, those need to come from quality sources, of course, and that's definitely something I preach. But that's huge. Getting the right balance of macros for the person, where their metabolism is at, and if they've always been eating this low-calorie diet, eventually that's going to stop working because their metabolism will adapt at some point. So we have to work on kind of bringing that up sometimes. And sometimes it's like, yeah, we have been just eating too much, and that's potentially the problem too. But they're like, I'm always hungry. So we have to, again, get the balance of protein, carbs, and fat for the person so that they can feel full and satisfied and not feel like they need to snack all the time or go into the pantry or the freezer at 9:30 at night, right? Like those are the things we want to fix first. Gut issues are so common. And even if you don't have digestive issues, like you don't consider yourself someone with gut issues, like you could still have imbalances in your gut that drive other things. So they can drive your hormones off. So then that's the other thing. So I see different things, whether it's cortisol, insulin, estrogen problems, testosterone. It just depends on the person. So gut issues, I always say it's like your gut is your command center, and your hormones are your chemical messengers, and your command center kind of tells the messengers what to do. So we really got to focus on the gut healing, whether that's, we do the functional lab test to figure out where we can really target to help that individual the most. And that's where the labs are just crucial, right? That just gets to the root of things. And those are the three things, like macros, gut health, hormones. Those are the things that typically hold people back, that, they might think they're not working out enough, yeah. Right? Or they might think, I'm just not being good enough. I'm just not being consistent enough. And it's like, I actually talk to a lot of people who are like, I work out 5 days a week, right? They're moving their bodies, but they're like, I don't see these results. And it's like, well, we got to fix the food component, because that's really going to help your workouts actually maximize the results there. And now you're going to exponentially see better results, and address what's going on under the hood, because that could be keeping you from absorbing your food properly, or you could have some serious anxiety or cortisol or whatever issues that are just keeping your body from feeling safe. And a body that doesn't feel safe will hold on to fat.
Yeah, I'd love to break these three kind of down. I'll touch briefly on the exercise one, just because, first of all, I exercise all the time. I like doing it for a variety of reasons. But if you guys have heard of the blue zones, a lot of people have heard of that. Some of the research behind that's a little flawed, or maybe the conclusions are flawed, but that's not the point. The people actually exist. There are these disproportionate amounts of people living to over 100 in places like Sardinia, Italy, Ikaria, Greece, Okinawa, Japan, and you kind of look for what are the similarities here. And one thing that is true is you don't find these people sitting there doing bodybuilder diets or strongman or training for marathons. That doesn't happen. Now, if you want to go do those things, I'm not condemning anyone's goals. That's not what I'm saying. I participate in certain things like that. But they're living to 100. None of them are overweight, that's for sure. And you find that the movement is nowhere near as intense as we've come to think needs to be done on a regular basis. And again, there's a time and place for everything. But I think the idea that I think it crushes a lot of people when they're doing all this stuff and wondering why it's still not working. And then you find that not only is that not always required, the way that we view exercise is probably completely different than what we would have done ancestrally. And so really, I always word it as to get to a healthy weight, you need to get healthy, and then it kind of happens naturally. Now let's break down the macros thing though, specifically before we get into gut and hormones even, because I think macros is one of those things that most of the people that might listen to this actually do have an idea of, and there's different philosophies in how one should handle macros. There's the balanced approach. There's the people talking ketogenic. So you mentioned it almost seems like there's nuanced situations where, depending on where this person is at in their health journey, the macros might be edited. So how can, I don't know if you can give this all away, but how can someone kind of figure out what's right for them? Is it all keto? Is it all reverse keto? What is it?
Sure. That's a great question. So first of all, we start with protein. Protein is the number one thing you have to kind of lock in before you move to kind of the other two. It just your day-to-day protein amount usually is somewhere around 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. That's typically where we start people. However, there's some people who come to us, they're eating like 60 grams of protein per day. So we're not going to be like, oh, here, go eat 140 grams of protein. It's like we do like a step up typically with those folks. But your goal is to try to get that much protein in from high quality sources of protein, like animal-based proteins. That's the goal first and foremost. And then with the other two macronutrients, it's, carbohydrates and fat. Now, fat is super energy dense. So you have to kind of be careful because a lot of people might go, people think, I just need to eat like low carb and I'm going to lose weight. Well, if you want to build muscle and lose fat, like if you want to look like you are leaner and like you work out, keto is probably not going to work for you that well with this method. So I would go for a more balanced approach with the carbs and the fats as a place to start, right? So we customize this for people that I work with one-on-one, where it's like, okay, these are your types of workouts. This is the type of carbohydrates and fats we need to do for you. But the other thing to note is, so maybe you start out with like kind of an even amount across the board. Like you figure out your protein, maybe it's, your goal weight's 140. So you try hit 140 grams of protein, and then you focus on, maybe splitting your calories between carbs and fat for whatever your calorie goal is. And the way you determine your calorie goal is you want to figure out maintenance. So you got to figure out what amount of calories is the amount that would just keep me at the weight I am, right? So we got to figure that out. There's free calculators out there that will pretty much do that for you. But the problem with those is if you don't know what you're doing, they kind of, each one of them will tell you a different thing. So there's methods that we use as coaches and with a lot of experience with this that we help define that for people a little bit easier. And then you have to determine, okay, if I want to gain muscle, where do I need to take my calorie level? And if I need to lose body fat, where do I need to take my calorie level? And we usually go up, maybe 10, 20% or down 10, 20%, depending on the person. And then also if they were like me, where they were just dieting all the time and they kind of crash their metabolism a little bit, and it's like really hard to lose weight even if they're eating 1,200 calories a day. Well, there's only one way to go, and it's not down. We got to go up in calories over time to do what's called a reverse diet, and this is a method of bringing your calories up slowly. And there's a specific method to that, and you can't go too fast, and you got to look at the other kind of body systems and functions to make sure everything's good, to increase somebody's metabolism and how much they can burn at rest. And so those are that's like macros, like very high level. I have a blog post that really breaks this down, and a macros checklist that also breaks this down for somebody who wants to know more.
Is the macros checklist, is it a simple enough URL that we can plug in for people right now, or should we maybe try it at the end?
I think it's thebodybulletin.com/checklist.
Okay. Tracy actually always helps us in the background. So if she's on, we can find that and we'll share that in just a moment. No worries.
That's it.
Cool. Thank you. Let's move it into the gut side then, because, again, I'm not sitting here. I rarely work with people on weight loss. In fact, I never have. It's always an indirect benefit. And they're coming to me for someone else or something else. But I think it's so cool when we present this stuff because people don't get this. If your gut has issues, like you said, that can lead to hormone issues. All these things are connected. That could lead to issues with your thyroid. It can lead to issues with cortisol being way too high, putting yourself in an overly stressed state. Like there are a million other things that can trigger these imbalances that, yes, make the food thing very complicated because, and I don't know, maybe you disagree with this, but I found most people tend to, unless everyone always talks about calories in, calories out. That's always going to be one of the hottest things it seems online. And of course, I agree at the extremes. If I eat 0 calories, yes, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to die, but I'm also going to lose weight. If I eat 10,000 calories every single day, I'm going to gain weight unless I'm Michael Phelps training for the Olympics because he famously, ate 10,000 calories a day. most of those extremes are going to affect me. But I know from personal experience, I've been through this myself, that 3,000 calories a day for me when I was trying to gain weight is not the same at all times of my life. And that could just be aging too, right? When I was 18 and ate 3,000 calories and did the exact same types of workouts, that did not do as much for me as it does now. And obviously, again, I've aged, but also what has happened too is my health has changed. And sometimes I feel like I get more bang for my buck. So I'd love to dive into some of the other gut issues that you're seeing with your clients that possibly some of these listeners could be dealing with that you're finding could actually contribute to weight loss. And maybe they've never even thought about this stuff before, or maybe they've never even heard of it.
Yeah. So I like to think about it just kind of like high level here. Like if you have gut imbalances, if you have an issue with your microbiome, if you have leaky gut, if you have, bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, like any of these things, it's usually a sign that there's some sort of level of dysfunction beyond just, this food bothers me. Like it's probably something a little bit deeper than just the food you ate. So, it's just like one of those clues that I like to use as a coach that's like, okay, there's probably something going on here. And when we see problems with your gut, then we pretty much know that you're probably not absorbing the nutrients that you really need to absorb. For example, parasites eat first, right? So they're going to kind of steal your nutrients from you. And so that's just one example. But, I like to run the GI map to see what we're dealing with, to address those things in like specifically for the person. And liver is such a big one. Oh my goodness. I have done a tremendous amount of work on my liver and it has transformed my health. And if your bile isn't flowing, if you don't have good bile flow, like it causes a lot of other problems. It causes the constipation. It causes, intestinal bacterial overgrowth, things like SIBO, bloating, all of this stuff. And so I see those things as really common ones that, just slow the metabolism down because the body is like fighting to get the nutrients it needs. And the gut is just like, it's kind of a mess, right? Things are putrefying in there. Things are fermenting in there. It's creating more bacterial imbalances. I had, a tremendous amount of autoimmune bacteria in my gut that I didn't know about. It's all gone now, thankfully, so like I know that there's things that we can do that helps balance that. And then when you have a more balanced gut, you can actually absorb the nutrients you're eating. So it's like if I'm eating healthy, I'm exercising every day, but I'm not getting my results of my workouts that I think I should be getting. This is one of the things I like to look at to say, okay, let's make sure you're absorbing what you eat.
Yeah. I like that you brought that up because Lucy McKellar, the executive director of the graduates group for FDN, we just did what we call our lunch and learns yesterday. We do these like 30-minute hot topic things real quick for the podcast. And we were discussing indican on the metabolic wellness panel and how that is indicative of protein breakdown or lack thereof. And it was funny when I ran those tests, I was seeing I could not digest protein well. So it's like, well, no crap. I'm having trouble gaining healthy weight and gaining muscle. I'm eating the 120 grams or 130 grams of protein or whatever it was at the time, but I'm not getting all of it. So for some people that could lead to weight loss. For it seems the majority of the population, it does the opposite thing, unfortunately. So let's dive into hormones too, because again, coming from an outsider's perspective that doesn't sit with the nuances of this every single day, when I think of like hormones and weight loss, like one of the first things that comes to my mind is thyroid. It's amazing how many people who struggle with weight have their TSH through the roof and no one's even thought to test. No one knows about it. But there's a lot more than that. So what tests are you using to look at people's hormones? Because they might not be familiar with that. And then how does that kind of help tie into the weight loss thing? Oh, and we have the Body Bulletin link below. So that is in the chat now. Thank you so much, Tracy. And I will make sure to share that as well.
So I look at a number of hormones and it really depends on the person's like willingness to like go get blood work or whatever, if they want to get their thyroid tested. But typically we start with just running a Dutch or the SHP or something like that. And it's, the standard, like cortisol is probably the number one that I actually look at, because if I see cortisol issues, which happens most of the time, then, I know it's probably driving other things off too. it's kind of like the first one, because it's like if you have thyroid issues, like you probably have gut issues, you probably have cortisol, like HPA axis issues. And so trying to figure out, okay, what's going on with cortisol? Where are we at here? And how can we like bring safety back to the body? It's like that sympathetic, parasympathetic imbalance with the person. And so that's a huge one. Cortisol is also really linked to midsection weight gain for a lot of people, especially in like midlife, where metabolism maybe slowed down a little bit, maybe they lost some muscle mass. And so we see that midsection weight gain, especially also estrogen is a little bit linked to that. So when we see women in that perimenopausal, menopausal range, it's like, okay, well, let's look at estrogen. Testosterone is like your ability to build muscle, your ability to have like motivation and drive and like your get up and go, right? Your do something hormone. Like if they're really low motivation, low energy, like we're looking at that one. Insulin is huge. So I had a recent webinar I did where I talk about all of these, but like insulin is your fat storing hormone. So if we have like high blood sugar issues, or if we're not managing blood sugar properly with our diet, typically, then we see, insulin might be high. It's kind of a good one to also recommend to clients because they often can go get that one tested from their general practitioner, and they'll actually test for that one, which is pretty nice. They'll also like maybe test like your blood sugar just to kind of see like how those two relate. So I like to look at insulin, cortisol, estrogen, testosterone. Progesterone is important. It's not necessarily going to be directly linked to fat gain, fat loss, all of that, but it is your like overall balance, well-being is important. And so we need hormones, even if you're like done having kids, your reproductive system is like, okay, we're done here. It's like, no, you still need hormones to feel good, to have this sense of like wellness and motivation and vibrancy. Like you still need them. So we see a lot of like, sleep issues for people who maybe have not enough progesterone. And if you don't sleep, you're not recovering. You're not going to see results of your workouts, right? So it's just like all of them play a role here. And if I see thyroid like problems, then I know that, okay, that's kind of like your canary in the coal mine type hormone. Okay, if that one's off, we have to think about why. And I go back to the gut health situation for that one.
Yeah, I love connecting all this stuff. I hope this is useful for people. A few are commenting. No questions. If you guys have any last second questions, we do have another 10 minutes. Please feel free to ask them and I will extend them to Shay. Also, I realized the link's pretty long. So if you're on Facebook, just go to Tracy's comment. And then if you're on YouTube, I commented back to Empowering Health Journeys. And you guys can find the link there for what we were talking about before. All right. With this all said, one of the things that we were kind of going to focus on today, I'm glad we did the other stuff, but I should bring it into this, was specifically with midlife women, how can they deal with these things? Because obviously, even if we were perfectly healthy our whole life, my body is going to be different at 15 than it is at 35, than it is at 85. I think what actually gets a lot of us, though, is you kind of wonder. We want answers, right? We're like, well, how much different is it supposed to be? What's supposed to be normal? I know I'm going to have some wrinkles at 85 for sure. How many is it going to be? And so can we talk about maybe what is a normal expected thing to happen in midlife for women in terms of weight gain or lack of muscle versus something that we actually can prevent if we are doing the right things health-wise?
Yeah. So I want to talk about muscle, and I also want to talk about kind of the gut stuff as well. We know hormones go down, right? That's something that does happen. That's pretty normal for them to go down. But with muscle, this is like the number one thing you can probably control as a person who ages. We all are, right? As soon as a woman hits 30 years old, actually, I think men too, but I don't specialize in men, so I'm not gonna don't quote me on that one. So as soon as a woman hits 30, you start losing muscle every single year. Something like, half a pound to a pound of muscle can be lost in a year if you're not actively working to replace it and build it up. So someone might think, oh my God, I'm going to get bulky if I lift weights. And it's like, well, actually you're just losing muscle all the time. So make sure you're trying to build it back or you're going to have problems. This is the muscle-centric nutrition, muscle-centric workouts. Those are the key things that I work with my clients, because if you are building your muscle fat's going to take care of itself, right? And the first thing that usually goes is the midsection fat, the one that everybody wants to get rid of when we start to bring our muscle mass up. And I lift weights. I lift super heavy weights. Like, I don't really feel that bulky. Like, so I lift really heavy, and I just feel like it makes me more lean and toned, and I kind of like look like I work out versus, if you would have to literally work out like multiple hours a day and eat a ridiculous amount of a surplus in calories to get to that bulky level. If you were to just eat at maintenance, or maybe even a little bit below maintenance, but probably don't even need to do that, you will drop inches by probably eating more than you're eating now if you get the macros right and you get the right workout. So that's key as you age, right? And then with gut health issues, like in our modern world, like, Evan, like it's crazy out there. Okay. It's crazy out there what we have in our food, in our water, in the air we breathe, right? In our homes, who knows if there's mold or not, like whatever. Like, there's so many different things that there's industrial chemicals being imported into this country all the time. So we have to be careful and really be vigilant about what's in our surroundings, what's in our homes, what's in our products we're putting on our skin, right? Like, what's your shampoo have in it? Are you using specific types of laundry detergents that are actually cancer causing and you don't know it? Like, all of these things add to your toxic load overall. And I love that like toxic bucket theory of like, the body's great at detoxing until it's not, right? So if you're having like digestive issues, if you're having low energy, if you can't seem to lose weight, if you struggle to build muscle mass, if you're just kind of like feeling tired, sleep issues, whatever it might be, we have to look at that overall toxic load and bringing that down. And when I see that happen, we open detox pathways and drainage. And oh my goodness, one of the first things in the first few weeks that my clients tell me is, oh my God, I'm sleeping better. Oh my God, my digestion, I'm going every day. Oh my God, my brain fog has lifted. It is like a veil comes up and they're like, oh, this is what I could feel like. I didn't even know. Like, it's what they used to feel like when they were 20, So it's like your toxic load has kind of gone up and up and up and up and up to a point where, it kind of, once it starts overflowing, it's just always overflowing. And if you never can get ahead of your symptoms, if you're like, why do I always kind of feel like a little bit bad or like low energy, whatever, all those things I mentioned, it's like, you probably need to look at that, your overall toxic burden. And so that's also one of the things people can do as they age.
Thanks, Shay. I love all that stuff. I want to go back just to one point, or just to comment on it about the bulkiness thing. Because it's amazing, like some of the smartest people that really get into this, they still kind of fall for some of these stereotypes, or these beliefs are so deeply held from when they're a kid that you'll still hear them share this stuff as if it's like true. And guys, just look up how much muscle a woman can gain on average per year if you're like trying. Like, I mean, like literally that's your full-time job. It is very hard. People also forget, I'm not saying it's everyone by any means, but people also forget how many people out there on social media use drugs, men and women. It's a lot. And if you don't believe that, go look up like truly natural bodybuilding for men and females, like tested like multiple times a year, random testing, and see what those men and women look like. And then you will realize, oh, okay, there's a lot of people on some stuff out there. So, a guy, especially if they're young and maybe just screwing around in the weight room, I could see, especially depending on their genetics, they could bulk up pretty easily. I don't think I've ever met a woman that you would describe as bulky that was not doing that with pure intent, that knew every little thing that she was eating, lifting, understood the difference between hypertrophy training and strength training, like all that stuff, right? That's a pretty hard thing to do.
Yeah, very, very difficult. That's such a good point. There's the things you see online of like people who are super muscly, they're probably had some help with that.
And I mean, oh gosh, I don't want to get on the soapbox here, but it always sucked, especially as like a leaner guy, especially for most of my life when I was younger. I'd like, do you guys look this up? The natural bodybuilders that are men are competing. Their weight for competing is like 160 pounds, 170 sometimes. And the guys that are in the other competitions are competing at like 220, 230 sometimes. So you guys do the math, right? Yeah. How much extra muscle you can get doing this crap. So it's true for women as well. People are competitive and they want to win. And if that was my sport, maybe I'd do it too. But understand we have to have realistic expectations for ourselves, and the muscle is going to help you look way better versus then actually bulk you up. That'd be pretty hard. With all that said, I know we kind of indirectly brought up the client story about the gallbladder removed person. I said that weird, but you know what I mean. But I always like to share this at the end, like client testimonials, and you have so many on your website, and that's just the ones that are sharing it publicly. So I would love to hear about like one of your top stories. And what this story might look like is beyond just even weight loss. I feel like what we do as FDNs, we end up helping. When you said you had like 30 other symptoms, it helps that stuff. So I'd love to hear of a testimonial that sticks out that maybe came to you for weight loss and you end up helping them with a bunch of other things. Is there any story that sticks out?
Let me think. So I have let's see, I have so many. It's like, I just gave you one of my top ones, but, so I have a client who I worked with a long time ago when I did not know what I was doing with the functional health stuff. Okay. So it's kind of cool because it's like, I knew I couldn't help certain people and like they weren't getting those results. And then I opened up my practice. I kind of created a new program to help people with the gut health and the hormone issues and things like that. And she came to me, she's like, oh my God, I'm at the highest weight I've ever been. I feel so uncomfortable and none of my clothes fit. And I was like, okay, so let's talk about it. And she said, I've been trying to do the macros like I learned from you before, and I lost a little bit of weight, but I feel totally stuck. And I ran some labs with like a functional medicine doctor or something like that. And there was so many problems, like so many like liver issues, like beta glucuronidase was 5 figures. It
Wow.
was like 14,000 or something like that. And it wasn't the GI map. It was a different test, but it was the highest I clearly have ever seen. And it was crazy. And so I was like, okay, you have some serious stuff going on here. And so we started working together, I think in January, February, and we started going through like a gut healing protocol and things like that. And she has been able to actually get to a new like low in her weight. Not somebody who has a ridiculously amount of, maybe like 10 to 20 pounds was like her ideal to lose. But as we're doing the muscle-centric workouts, the muscle-centric nutrition, she's traveling a lot, right? She's a working full-time mom, and but she's just had all of these like gut issues that she's like, I have had gut issues and had literally diarrhea every single day of her life. She does not remember how long it's been. So that has dramatically improved as we've gone through a gut healing protocol, and she no longer has the diarrhea every single day. She's lost around 10 pounds. She's gotten to new lows. She's like, I'm fitting into clothes that I haven't fitted in for like well over 5 years. And this is just so exciting to see that like there was a problem that, a typical trainer probably wouldn't have identified, right? Or wouldn't have addressed. And, just to see like that this type of work is helping to like rewind the clock a little bit on these internal organ systems is just so wonderful for me as a coach to see. And like, I know that these people are and she's not even done. She's like, we're still going, but she's still improving her gut, week over week, month over month as we go, shedding more weight. And it's easier. That's the thing. When you work on those things, the macros work better. The workouts work better. Like if you worked out when you were 20 something, it probably worked really easily, right? But as a 40 something person, what used to work stopped working kind of thing. And this is kind of like what we're doing is sort of rewinding the clock a little bit.
That's awesome, Shay. Thank you so much. All right. So I know we kind of said it with some of the other links, but just to be clear especially for those on audio, where can they find you? And then I know you do a bunch of stuff here. Most of the website that I've seen is centered around weight loss. I would just like you give your elevator pitch. Like who do you like to serve the most? Who is your average client? So where can they find you and who is the client that you like to help the most?
Yeah. So you can go to thebodybulletin.com. That is my main homepage of my website. I have tons of blogs on there as well. You can find me on Instagram. I'm there quite a bit at The Body Bulletin. So THE Body Bulletin, all one kind of word. And feel free to send me a DM, or I have a bunch of like trainings and stuff. If you look through my posts, you can get access to those free trainings. And then my ideal client, or somebody I really love to work with, is that 35 to 55-year-old kind of career gal who has been struggling to see results of her workouts and just feels like there's probably something going on gut or hormonally that we just haven't figured out yet. And they're dealing with these symptoms that are just like kind of pesky and annoying. And they'd love to just be able to sleep better, have more energy, have better digestion, and finally lose those extra pounds.
Awesome. Our signature question on the show to finish up today is, and this could be, I know we're talking about weight loss, but it could be about anything. If we were to give you a magic wand and you could wave it and you could force all of I got to stop using the word force. That sounds way too aggressive. If you could get all of our listeners and viewers to do one thing for their health, whether that's start doing one thing, or you can get us all to stop doing one thing in your years of studying this stuff, what is the one thing that you'd get us to do?
So I think I'm going to do something just a little more specific. I know everybody loves to do kind of like the eat clean foods, and that's true. But I think if every person learned how to eat for their metabolic needs, worked with a coach maybe once, and like really learned how to eat for their body's needs, you'd prevent a lot of problems. You'd have the body that you want, you would sleep better, you would have all of the energy, like all of those things. And so I think eating for your metabolic needs, learning how to actually fuel your body for what you need, it would put an end to a lot of the chronic yo-yo dieting roller coaster that so many of those people find themselves on.
Awesome. All right, Shay, thank you so much for doing some of our open house first and now the Health Detective podcast. I love how